Today we have the poem The Patriot by Robert Browning. It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway, the church spires flamed. Such flags they had a year ago, this very day. So here we see that a person, the patriot, is telling us how the people of his country had received him a year ago. He says that the streets, the path was filled with roses and myrtle. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway. All the people stood out in the balconies and they stood out on either side of the streets. The very church spires flamed because so many flags were put up. People were receiving their hero with great jubilation, with great celebration. They were receiving this hero. So, this is what the poet is describing. And now, the very word church, we can even think of the person as somebody who was prominent in church. It is also a hero as far as he could be a soldier, he could be a public leader, because the people of the whole area have congregated there to receive him. The air broke into a mist with bells. The old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise repels, but give me your sun from yonder skies. So now here the speaker says that had he asked those people, mere noise repels me. I do not want merely your cries of celebration. Give me yonder sun from the skies. Here the word sun can stand for give me your assurance, give me your trust, give me your truth. Had I asked that, they would have answered, and afterward, what else? They would have given me everything, and they would have said, what more can we do for you? You know, he was such a leader, so loved by his people. He has not asked for their trust, but he says that had I asked, I would have definitely got it, because that was their belief in him. Alack, it was I who leaped at the sun to give it to my loving friends to keep. Not man could do, have I left undone. And you see my harvest, what I reap. This very day, now a year is run. But instead of asking them, it was he himself who had leapt at the sun. It was he who had taken the sun to give it to his loving friends to keep. He had fought for them. He says that what was possible as human to do, I have done that and more for my people. But what is my harvest? Let us see what he has reaped from these great sacrifices, these heroic deeds that he has done. Now, exactly a day, it is the same day, a year has passed since he once came into his homeland, celebrated as a hero. Here he says, there is nobody on the house tops now, just a palsied few at the windows set. So some palsied, some weak, sick people, they're sitting at the windows and looking down. They're too weak to get down, so they are sitting at the window. So let us see where are all the strong people in the land. For the best of the sight is all Alack at the Shambles Gate, or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot I trow. So where I now walk and go, that is to the scaffold, he is to be executed, he is to be hung. So there at the executioner where he is to be killed, that is where all those very people who once celebrated him, they are now standing there to see him executed. So now the words, I leapt at the sun, this brings to mind the story of Icarus, the Greek hero who flew too near to the sun. So here also we are made to think of our hero who has gone too near the flames. In his very act of sacrifice, he has gone too near the flames, such that he has got burnt. Icarus too fell. His wings were burnt by the sun and he fell into the ground. So this is brought to mind by the sentence, leapt at the sun. I go in the rain, and more than needs, a rope cuts both my wrists behind. And I think by the feel my forehead bleeds. For they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me for my years' misdeeds. So he says that he is going in the rain and his hands, they are bound so tight, more than is necessary. He would never run away from his people. He would never try to escape. He is ready to bear this punishment for his supposed misdeeds. Even then, his hands are bound together and the rope cuts into his wrists, causing it to bleed. And his forehead too bleeds. And because he is wounded, whoever feels like it is flinging stones at him. And these stones, they land on his forehead and they are causing him to bleed. And he says that these are all the punishment I am getting for my years' misdeeds. We know that he is a hero. It could be that he has stood against a tyrannical government. We see that happening in so many countries around us. A man who stands for truth often has to stand alone. He may be voicing against the tyrants. It could be a government. It could be any tyrannical rule. And for that he is being punished. When we say that the forehead is, blood is coming from the forehead, we are put to mind of the crown of thorns, which was placed on the head of the greatest among leaders, Jesus Christ, when he walked towards the cross, where his arms were bleeding, where his forehead was bleeding. So there is a hero who sacrificed himself for his people. Thus I entered and thus I go. In terms, people have dropped down dead, paid by the world. What dost thou owe me? Me, God might question now instead. 'Tis God shall repay. I am safer so. So now he says that very often in Trump, people have dropped down dead. There are so many stories of patriots, of great heroes who have ultimately had to leave this earth by the very people who once celebrated and called them heroes. We know the story of Mahatma Gandhi, who won freedom for our country, for India, and later became a martyr for the very country for which he won freedom. We have read the story of Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc led the French against the brutal rule of the English and won freedom for her country. But this young maid of Orleans was later consumed by the fire. She was killed at the stake. She was burnt alive, called a heretic by the very countrymen whom she had served. So this is quite often the story of patriots. So here our patriot also says, God may ask me that you have worked for your people. You have been compensated, paid by your people. What do you owe me? What am I to do for you? But I know that I am in safe hands on that day of judgment when I go before my Maker, for he will be kind to me. My Creator alone will know the truth for which I stood, and he will be kind to me. My God will be kind. So here we see that the patriot is almost wishing to be in that divine presence. So this is a dramatic monologue. Robert Browning was a Victorian poet, and Victorian times was the most turbulent times of English art and poetry. We can say that during the Victorian era, the people were very much led to question lives, that is the faith, the religion by which they lived until then suddenly came into strife. There was Darwin on one hand, there was Industrial Revolution on the other hand. So people were led to question even the faith, the morals in which they were brought up. All of a sudden, a great leap of knowledge and faith occurred. So Browning is very well known for his dramatic monologues. Dramatic monologues is where a person, imagined person, is speaking out of a particular instance or a deed. It is the continuous thoughts of one individual alone. So some of his very famous works include Porphyria's Lover, in which an aberrant mind is detailed. Then there is the Pied Piper of Hamelin. So many of these dramatic monologues draw a very beautiful picture of a character. Oscar Wilde spoke of Browning as he who is second to the one who has created Hamlet. We all know that is Shakespeare. So, in characterization or building of character, Browning was considered second to Shakespeare. So, thank you.
The Patriot by Robert Browning. It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway. The church spires flamed. Such flags they had a year ago on this very day. The air broke into a mist with bells. The old walls rocked with a crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise repels, but give me your son from yonder skies, they would have answered, and afterward, what else? Alack, it was I who leaped at the sun, to give it to my loving friends to keep. Not man could do, have I left undone. And you see my harvest, what I reap this very day. Now a year is run. There's nobody on the housetops now, just a palsied few at the windows sit. For the best of the sight is all alove at the Shambles Gate, or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot I trow. I go in the rain, and more than needs, a rope cuts both my wrists behind. And I think by the feel, my forehead bleeds, for they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me for my year's misdeeds. Thus I entered, and thus I go. In trumps, people have dropped down dead, paid by the world, what dost thou owe? God might question, now instead, 'tis God shall repay, I am safer so.